We are now live and recording.
Good. I haven't done that. Welcome, everyone. It's called our meeting to order. This is kind of a fun thing for me to do, to chair a HECC meeting at a location I'm very familiar with. Most of you know I was president here for a decade, so it's this is a bit of a coming home, but it's anyway, just grateful that you're here. And we have, I think, a deep agenda that provide, I think, a lot of opportunity for deep conversation, especially this afternoon. So I'm looking forward to that. I want to take time we have a number of new commissioners, and typically we give them an opportunity to introduce themselves to us. I want to do something that feels a little more fair. And as we are going to introduce ourselves to them first, okay? And so I'm just asking, I know this is hard for us, but I'm asking you to introduce yourself and maybe just tell me one thing about perhaps your background, your career, or something like that that brings you here as a commissioner on the Higher Education Commission. And then our new commissioners will provide us with a similar background, maybe a little more lengthy, but okay. Yes, we'll start with Jennifer.
All right. Hi, I'm
Commissioner Smith. I apologize.
Thank you. Like Jennifer too. I'm Jennifer Smith. I am a program coordinator at the University of Oregon and have worked there for 18 years. I work at the Labor Education and Research Center there. I'm also the president of the Classified Employees Union at the University of Oregon. And people don't usually care about this thing, but I think this group may. I have a master's degree in urban planning, a master's degree in public administration. So I have a lot of, and I went to community college and enjoyed that very, very much. And so I feel like I have experienced the range of higher education, but I am really interested in workforce development now.
Thank you. Commissioner Middleton.
Thank you. My name is Mary Middleton, and I am math faculty at Rogue Community College, and I've taught in England and South Korea, and at universities and at community colleges, and find my best place that I like to teach is community colleges. But that teaching experience, along with some other faculty leadership experience, has led me to become part of the commission. Enjoy.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Commissioner Yamasaki.
Oh, we're gonna skip.
I'm just going in order of sitting. Okay?
Okay.
We'll come back to
Okay.
it.
Oh, I'm Gail Yamasaki, and I live in Klamath Falls. And I've had the privilege of working from K through 12, community college and higher ed. And I started my first career in Samoa in a community college there, mostly Indigenous students.
Thank you. Now we'll come back.
Oh yeah, we'll come back to them.
And we'll skip to Commissioner Simnett.
I'm Emily Simnett. I am faculty at the University of Oregon, where I have taught writing and public speaking and critical reasoning for 11 years. This is my 11th year. Prior to my very first university teaching experience was in 1997 when I was working on my master's degree. So I guess I've almost been teaching off and on for 30 years. I did a stint as a newspaper reporter in Idaho, where I covered legislative and education issues. I also worked in public information in Idaho's Health and Human Service Agency. So I have like some background in public service in addition to teaching. I love being part of the commission. I think the work we do is so important. We are engaging in making decisions and increasing uncertainty, but we're able to do so, and I think in a really interactive and cooperative way. And it's been a true joy to be on the commission, and I'm looking forward to this next year.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Coker.
Hi, my name is Evelyn Kocher. I use she, her pronouns. I am from Beaverton in Washington County, lived there my whole life and just moved back there a couple years ago. I come to the board from, as probably the most recent of us to have been in post-secondary education, but I went to Oregon State University. And ever since then, I have been working in local government and politics. I spent a couple years working with the Oregon Student Association, and now I work with the as the communications manager with Latino Network up in Portland. I'm on a couple of other boards and commissions as well, including the for Basic Rights Oregon and the ACLU. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here and give a little bit more voice to the student experience at our post-secondary educational institutions.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Martinez.
I'm Teresa Martinez. I'm from Eastern Oregon, Ontario, like out as east as you can go. Doesn't get much more east than that. I'm the director of Eastern Oregon Child Care Resources, and I've been in the education field going on 25 years-ish. About 13, 14 of them were in K-12 teaching special ed and alt ed before I made the switch to early childhood. I also sit on our REN board, which is the Regional Education Network, and then our early learning board. And my job is, my paid job is to help the workforce in ECE, early childhood education. And then I still have fingers, obviously, in the rest of the spectrum of education in Eastern Oregon. So that's kind of why I'm here.
Thank you, so Commissioner Fajardo.
Hi, I'm Arnel Fajardo. Unlike a lot of people, I'm not in the education field. I'm actually in manufacturing, having spent 10 years at Intel Corporation and then 15 years at a company called ATI, which is in the Mid-Atlantic Valley here. I am a big supporter of education. My current job allows me to work with a huge spectrum of people who have gone through the higher education system, from apprenticeships to PhDs. And it's great. I'm very supportive. I've had two degrees myself in graduate school. I had the experience and the pleasure of being a teaching assistant for general chemistry. And it was great just to be able to interact with students. So I appreciate what all you have done in the teaching. But it's great to be here.
Thank you so much. Do we have Commissioner Arnott online?
I do not believe so.
Okay, Commissioner Devlin.
Yes, I'm Commissioner Devlin. I'm in my 4th year on the commission. I've had a lifelong interest in higher education. I've served 31 years as an elected official, 21 of those in the Oregon legislature. And if you add my board time, which doesn't overlap, I've served a total of 42 years as an elected and an appointed official. I've got a lifetime interest, as I say, in higher education. I'm a graduate of Portland State. I also attended Pacific Lutheran, and I'm a graduate of Pepperdine. For some reason, I've had a proclivity for attending institutions that start with a P, but I never attended Princeton.
Thank you. Do we have Commissioner Edwards online?
I do not believe yet.
Okay, thanks so much. How about, you want to introduce yourself?
No, I don't. But well, I have lots of time this afternoon.
Okay.
You're gonna hear so much from me this afternoon. Let's go to the new commissioner.
Okay, I'll do my introduction. Greg Heyman. I started as a 9th grade school teacher in Minnesota, where I'm originally from, and then moved into private 4-year education, student services, and then sort of drifted into administration. And then 30 years ago, I moved into the community college world in Wyoming, and then eventually became president of Clatsop Community College here in Oregon in Astoria, and then president of this school for a decade. And so the commissioner provides, I think, like a lot of us, just an opportunity to continue to be involved in a terribly important work of fostering good educational environment for our communities and for our students. So I feel very honored and privileged, humbled to be here. Anyway, good for that. Okay, so now you know the people are already here, and I want to provide a similar opportunity for our new commissioners. We have 3, and I'm going to start with Eric. Now I can
Hi, my name is Eric Njue. I am currently a PhD student at the University of Oregon studying special education. And I am originally from Kenya, and I first came to the US through Fulbright program. I taught at U of O. I taught my native language at U of O for 1 year. And then I decided, oh, let me become a student. And I became a master's student in education policy and leadership. So you can see how I am coming to HECC. So I studied for 1 year, and that's where the conversation about HECC started, because we had a higher education policy class that we really had discussions about it, and how it came about to be, and how education in Oregon came to be where it is at the moment. I then enrolled for PhD program. At the same time, I also served at the Tuitions and Fees Advisory Board to the president of U of O for 1 year. And there I also engaged with HECC again. Some of the achievements were, the Balmer Institute and some other achievements that we made in that commission. And here I am again with the HECC now as a commissioner, and I'm really happy to participate, share what I know, and also learn from all of you. I've had so many years of maybe 100 years of experience from all of this group, and I'm really glad to learn from all of you. So yeah, and make my contributions concerning policy, because my area of focus in special education is policy, because I've come from a policy background, and I like reading about policy and sharing about policy and engaging in constructive discussions about how to improve education, not only for my young kids that I like teaching, but also for my colleague, graduate students and undergraduate students back at U of O and other colleges, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much, Chair.
thank you so much. Yeah. I've gotten to call you a lot of things, but the first time I get to call you Commissioner Deborah, and welcome.
Well, thank you, Chair. Chair Heyman, first time I've called you that.
It probably is.
Yeah, I'm Michael Dembro, and you see me smiling a lot. I'm just feeling like a kid in a candy store, I have to say. My own background, I taught writing and film studies at Portland Community College for 30-something years. And pretty early on while I was there, I got very involved in faculty issues and statewide education issues. My first experience with statewide issues was involvement in, I don't know if any of you have heard of this, but our attempt at semester conversion back in the late 80s. And that was unfortunately a failure, or actually a lot of good work was done, a lot of collaborative work. For the very first time, university and community college faculty working very closely together on curriculum. And then the legislature decided that we needed to stick with the status quo because we needed students to be working on farms and fishing boats during the month of August and early September. So anyway, so I have a lot of experience, but I also developed a thick skin, right? And I was the president of our faculty union for 16 years and involved at the state level. That's where I first met Greg, battling over budget issues.
State Board of Education.
Yeah, funding formula,
Right.
That's what it was. Yes. Anyway, it all eventually led me to run for the Oregon House and in 2008 and spent 5 years in the House, chaired the Higher Ed and Workforce Development Committee. Ultimately, eventually chairing the Education Committee, also the Workforce Committee. I really, as I suggested, feel like I'm kind of coming home. I was involved with the creation of this entity, the HECC. You may not know that we used to have a very, very fragmented system, and a group of us, and Ben was involved in that. Ben was my former colleague in the House, and creating an entity that brought together community colleges, universities, workforce, student aid, independent for-profit colleges. All of those were overseen by different entities back then. And it really made sense to bring that together. And I will say this structure, is a great model, and it's admired around the country. And I'm very pleased to have been part of creating it, which doesn't mean that it doesn't have its work cut out for us, especially right now. And so when I promised my wife back in 2020 that it would be the last time I'd run for a 4-year term. And it's been with a lot of trepidation, as those 4 years have come down, because I still have a real passion for this. And we are in incredibly difficult times. I don't need to tell you that. One of the last things that I was privileged to do was to lead a national, co-chair a national task force, NCSL task force on higher ed. We did good work. We came up with some great recommendations, I think. But in a sense, now history has passed us by, and we need to regroup. And we have so much work to do to support students and to really move Oregon forward. And I'm really pleased to be working with you all to help do that.
Welcome, welcome. And our last new commissioner is online, Commissioner Lawson.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you. I really appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I'm very happy to be here. I live in Springfield, Oregon. I'm a student at Lane Community College. I'm here filling the student representative seat for community colleges. I've worked in policy for 9 years. I serve on the Lane Community College Bond Oversight Committee. I previously served on the Mackenzie River Community Schools Technology Committee, which has K through 12 purview, not higher education, but I'm glad to have dipped my toes in both. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be here and contribute to the conversation and make sure we get everything in order.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. So typical of me, I forgot the first agenda item and I skipped into the fun stuff. We need to take an official roll.
It was a very detailed roll, Chair.
Yeah.
Call this out.
I will now call roll. Greg Heyman,
Present.
Emily Simnett,
Present.
Natalie Arnott, Michael Dembro,
Here.
Richard Devlin,
Present.
Helen Edwards, Arnell Fajardo,
Present.
Evelyn Coker,
Present.
Devin Lawson,
Present.
Teresa Martinez,
Here.
Eric Najue,
Present.
Ben Proctor Andrews, Mary Middleton,
Present.
Jennifer Smith,
Here.
Gail Yamasaki.
Here.
That is roll, and we have a quorum, Chair.
Oh, good. That's the track. Appreciate it. Thank you, Guthrie. Okay, you had all the packet you got electronically, and the first action item is to approve the August 2025 minutes. That's my glasses. I don't know what's happening. My sight is going away. So, anybody have questions about that or a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Great, we have approved the minutes from August. I believe the second item is the executive director report. Ben Shannon.
Thank you. Well, really glad to be here with all of you commissioners, many of you in person, several online. Really happy to be at Lynn Benton Community College. You know, prior to the pandemic, the commission held typically 3 meetings a year at a college or university campus. This is among our first efforts. I think we did a PSU meeting post pandemic, but we haven't gotten back quite to that 3 meeting a year in various parts of the state. We'd love to. It's more challenging for commissioners often, but it's more costly, so we're going to have to weigh that. But I think it's great to be on a campus. Today's meeting, this afternoon's portion of the meeting, will be followed by an opportunity for a tour for commissioners. So I hope that, especially if you haven't spent much time on this campus, you get to walk around with us and visit. Tomorrow morning we'll be welcomed, I believe, looking at Sheldon, I think we'll be welcomed by President Lisa Avery tomorrow morning. So we'll get an introduction to the school from her, but definitely want to express my appreciation to her and to the staff at Benton for welcoming us into the community here. We began holding these sort of 2-day October meetings early on in maybe 2014, 15, 16 as the commission was getting going, partly as an opportunity to give us a little bit more time with each other. There's the social event tonight. Also partly in an effort to give the commission a chance to go deeper than it often does in its agendas and have a more robust discussion about its strategies and its position relative to the landscape that we sit in. And much of that will take place this afternoon. And you're going to hear a lot from me to try to tee that up and then engage you in a conversation about where the commission is and where it's heading under the item 7.0 that we'll get to in a little bit. For now, my report will touch on a few other items, and I'll first draw your attention, as usual, to the one-page document in our packets that summarizes where the commission is in terms of spending against its 25-27, so recently adopted budget. Typically, there isn't much in the way of questions, especially this early in the biennium where we're still getting going. But if there are questions, feel free to follow up with me or with our operations director, Tom Reel, and we can sort through that. All right, to the somewhat more meatier items. I mentioned in my, discussed briefly in my report in August to the commission, the federal landscape. I will do so again, highlighting, first of all, the really extraordinary importance and impact of HR 1 that Congress passed this summer and the president signed. And I think we should understand that impact on higher education, primarily in terms of its impacts on the state budget. The various tax code changes that are projected to impact revenues and the cuts to Medicaid and food security, food assistance spending are challenging the state budget. And that's true in the short term. It is likely true in the long term. And I'll say a little bit more about state budget here in a moment, but I'll start with that. HR 1 also, as I noted in August, contains some of the most sweeping federal legislative changes for higher education that we've experienced, at least in my professional life coming out of Congress. For the most part, those are concentrated on the lending system with new caps in place for graduate student loans and undergraduate loans, with a simplified but more limited repayment system for student borrowers, and with the creation of a new workforce Pell Grant program that many community college students, potentially some others, will start to, we hope, benefit from as early as next school year. We have a role, particularly in that latter. We don't have a direct role in federal lending or grant making, but we do have a role, or repayments, but we do have a role in supporting the governor in the execution of the implementation of the Workforce Pell Grant program, and we'll be updating the commission more on that as we get closer to sort of decisions late in the spring. Before I talk in a little bit more detail about state budget impacts, I just also want to acknowledge on the federal landscape, as you know, we're in the midst of a federal government shutdown. That has not yet directly affected HECC funding or programs. It also has not, to our knowledge, affected student applicants for federal financial aid. Those functions are continuing at the U.S. Department of Ed, and in terms of grant making, the U.S. Department of Labor. So we have not yet experienced immediate or direct impacts. As you'll see on our website, though, as we do acknowledge that the longer the shutdown lasts, the more likely there is to be impact on HECC. And since I mentioned federal grants, it is also, I think, important to acknowledge that both prior to the federal shutdown and ongoing today, our colleges and universities have seen considerable impact on federal grants, again, not related directly to the federal shutdown, but related to administrative policies that have rescinded grants that were multi-year grants, and this administration has decided in a number of cases not to continue those. So we're seeing very direct impacts on colleges and universities. And then, of course, as we've talked about previously or noted previously, for research universities in particular, both the threats to indirect funding that are associated with those grants and direct effects from grant rescissions in research are having large impacts. Okay, let me go a little bit deeper on the state budget. The governor, in view of the updated economic and revenue forecast that the state receives quarterly, that shows the most recent forecast, a legislatively adopted budget for the current biennium that is now out of balance due to largely the impacts of HR1. The governor directed state agencies several weeks ago to reduce administrative spending. To the tune, for us, we were given a target of about 1 to 1.5%. So we're taking a number of steps internally, cutting back on travel, holding positions vacant for longer, slowing down our replacement cycle for IT, that will yield the roughly $750,000 of savings over the course of the biennium that will ensure we meet the governor's target for reduced spending in the HECC. In addition, last week, the Legislative Ways and Means Committee through the Legislative Fiscal Office requested that state agencies provide to the legislature in early November a proposal for how we would reduce our budgets, both our general fund budget and our other funds budget, lottery fund budgets, by 5%. So, and that's across the entirety, not just our administrative spending on kind of core agency staffing and operations, but across all of our spending categories, public universities, community colleges, student grant aid, workforce, to reduce that budget by 5%. So we will be working over the next several weeks. Agency leadership will work with the governor, the chief financial office to produce for the legislature a response to this request. It will be a proposal. It will be an option for how the legislature could reduce our budget by 5%. Presumably, those budget reductions would be enacted during any budget adjustments would be made by the legislature during the February 2026 short session. But I want to be transparent with this commission that this is activity. This response to the legislature will be submitted by me on behalf of the agency and in coordination with the governor's staff and LFO or CFO late this month or in early November. And it will provide this sort of approach proposal. What we've committed internally, and I commit to you, is that we will be guided in our recommendations by the agency's strategic plan and by the values that are embedded within it. The reality is that there's no way to achieve a 5% reduction to our budget without touching in all aspects of spending effectively. It will have an impact on agency operations. It will have an impact on community colleges, public universities, student grant aid. Not suggesting that it will be directly an across the board 5% cut, but we can't easily shield any portion of the operation from cuts under that type of scenario. And then, of course, the governor and governor's staff, agencies will be working with the legislature to determine what occurs in February. A few other items. So a little bit of shift of gears. You're aware, going back a year, many are continuing commissioners are aware of this commission's determination or I guess advocacy with the governor and legislature to re-examine how current service level is computed for community colleges and public universities. We have made that request internally. Our meeting with governor staff, chief financial office staff next week to talk about that possibility. And if we get the green light, Commissioner Devlin, on behalf of the commission, will work with us and them to consider what adjustments, if any, are appropriate. I just, again, be fully sort of transparent here. I think the challenge for, state leadership, probably the legislature, and that is not philosophical. I think there's likely a desire to have a current service level model that is accurate, but there is a concern in an era of tightening or declining resources. There's concern about creating a heightened expectation from us and our partners that we would get more money, right? So so that there's a little bit of tension in that, but we'll continue to work as we can to advance that conversation along. I mentioned strategic plan. Next month, my report will include a quarterly update on implementation work that we're doing against your strategic plan that you adopted almost a year ago, less than a year ago. So you had your last quarterly update in July or August from me, and we'll do that again in November. So you'll see progress against a number of items. You're not hearing more from me about that now because that's on the docket for next month. I'll give Guthrie the cue in a moment. I'll ask you to cue up the photo, but before we get to that, which will be the final portion of this report, I want to acknowledge public testimony. You will hear some both in person. There is also some in your packet. Much of that testimony relates to the commission's consideration of proposals to start new Bachelor's of Arts and Science in Education programs at community colleges. That is not on your agenda today. That is because the program approval process for new degrees at community colleges, and specifically bachelor's degrees at community colleges, is a multi-phased process that involves several commission notifications. You had the initial notification of this interest, of this emerging proposal on your June agenda. Assuming that the colleges move forward, you could see that again as a sort of phase 2 notification on your agendas in November. And it could come, again, if this all continues to move forward, it could come to your agenda for consideration and potential approval as early as February, although I'm starting to think more likely April. The timelines for that are laid out in rule. There's minimum times required for each phase, in part to give commission staff and other education partners the opportunity to have conversation. A lot of that has been occurring. So our staff has facilitated several conversations between the proposing community colleges and other higher education institutions, both public and private, that have had questions and concerns. And the colleges are using that information and those conversations to inform the submission that they make to our staff to enter phase 2. And so it's a lot of material being assembled. Ultimately, you can expect that you will, again, in a likely to meeting this spring, see a staff recommendation on approval or disapproval based on our judgment of whether these community college proposals meet the criteria established by law and to a lesser extent by commission administrative rule. I think it's very likely that we'll want to, before that meeting, have a preview with the commission, right? Even before you get to the final decision. So, stay tuned for the staging of that, but certainly don't intend to put the commission in a position where all of a sudden this is dropped in your lap and there's competing points of view and you have to make a yes, no. It may, don't get me wrong, you may have a hard decision to make because as you'll hear today, or some of you have heard previously, there are different perspectives on this. I expect that will continue to be the case, but we'll have a recommendation for you eventually in spring. And with that, I'll ask Guthrie, just final note, we held one of our semi-annual all-staff meetings a few weeks ago in Pringle Park in Salem. So hello, HECC staff. It was great. We do this September meeting outdoors. There's a, sort of potlucky feel, and we do some games and skits and then learning events. And we had a really good turnout, had a lot of fun. A few weeks ago, I would say morale at the agency is pretty high. We'll do again the Gallup employee engagement survey that we've done annually. It's shown increases every year. This is a staff that, among other things, just lead with this. This group of people, like doing everything from accounting to IT to policy to program administration, they're like remarkably mission driven. I know that's why you're here too. I want you to know, Guthrie, myself, and the vast majority of the folks there on the screen who you don't know, they love this work, or they're in this work because they care about the Oregonians who we're serving. That's true just across all kinds of position classifications. I'm reminded of that at events like this where I, interact more with a variety of folks from across the agency. And anyway, it's really a great place to work, and we had a lot of fun.
Great, fantastic. Thank you, Ben. Any questions for our executive director?
Executive Director.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Devlin.
Yeah. I just wanted a clarification from Ben on the 5% proposed or possible reductions. Is that limited to general funds and lottery funds?
Almost. Commissioner Devlin, we've also been asked to provide that recommendation on other funds. But yes, general lottery and other.
Thank you.
Commissioner Middleton, did you have a?
I did. I just had a quick question about the bachelor's degree. I think that it's only at like 5 community colleges. Is that correct? Bachelor's degree in education.
Correct. 5. Yes, Abby's nodding that it's 5 community colleges who are working in a coordinated way to bring those proposals forward. And I mislabeled that. I think I called them Bachelor of Arts and Sciences. I don't even know that exists. Bachelors of Applied Sciences in Education.
This is private schools. Yeah. Just not it.
Sure, Coach.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I wanted to see if it looks like we have approximately $170 million in federal funds that are allocated in this biennium's budget. I wanted to see if any of these were at risk of being clawed back by the federal government, as we've been seeing has been happening to other states and local agencies.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, for the question. I should probably follow up with a more detailed and accurate status report. Some of those funds come in the form of support from the U.S. Department of Education for adult basic education. And those dollars we deploy across community colleges. So they're really ultimately largely community college dollars. And for a couple of months this spring, early summer, those dollars were not forthcoming as expected under the kind of grant cycle that we're used to from the department. Those eventually did come through, not before community colleges were having to, potentially hold positions open or deal with other fiscal challenges as a result of that funding delay. So that was a major issue that we were really concerned about there, but it got resolved. Other funds, federal funds that were at risk relate to the AmeriCorps program that we administer. That too eventually was partially worked out. And I will follow up with any other federal programs and federal budget that we feel like is at risk or we've not seen on schedule.
Thank you. We will move on. We have a update report from the governor's office. Sarah Means, you're here. Thank you for being here with us.
Having me. here. I actually live in Coburg, which is just down the road from here, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to join you in person. So thanks for having me. Sarah Means, I'm Governor's Workforce, Higher Ed, and Economic Development Advisor. I think you saw me on a screen last month, so great to be here with you in person. Ben handled all the challenging updates, and I thank him for that. But I do want to acknowledge that we certainly are going into a challenging time, and Ben and his staff are really, tremendous partners to work with from our perspective in the governor's office, and we will be working closely as we look at those 5% reductions and move that forward. So just know that we very much appreciate Ben's guidance and thought partnership in this effort, and your all's guidance and thought partnership in this effort as well, as it will truly be a very challenging conversation across the state enterprise, frankly, moving forward. So I get to talk to you about something a little more fun today. Now, but it was really an initiative born out of Oregon Business Council. I'll just remind folks, my background is not strictly higher education. My background is community and economic development. I am an Oregon Duck grad, two-time Oregon Duck grad, bachelor's in planning, public policy and management, master's in community and regional planning. And then I went out into the world and did land use planning and community development and economic development. And so I come to this position really with a strong economic development lens. And an interest in making sure that we're connecting higher ed and economic development, because I truly do believe that economic development is, or higher ed is economic development, particularly the innovation and research and development that comes from community colleges and universities. And I think that we can do a much better job at leveraging that partnership moving forward here in Oregon. So I just, really wanting to give you that lens, the lens that I'm coming to this from. The South Willamette Innovation Corridor, I believe is what it's being called, is really a project born out of OBC, the Oregon Business Council, and Duncan Weiss. He took the initiative to really connect into the presidents at the University of Oregon and Oregon State University to really have a conversation around what that looks like as these two universities in the South Willamette Valley, 45 miles apart, and the innovation and all of the strengths coming out of these universities that have had some coordination certainly in the past, but we could really do a much better job of having more coordination, and also leveraging and leaning in on economic development for the South Valley corridor. It's something that we've just not done a very good job at over the decades. And so he was able to Duncan was able to bring together President Schultz, President Murphy, and a number of business owners, partners who have sort of come together around a table and agreed that this is something that really is important to all of us in the South Valley. And because I have been involved in the South Valley, frankly, nearly all my life, and worked in economic development down there, Duncan asked that I be involved as well. So happy to do that. It is a partnership really, and an opportunity that's very new. We're just really moving this forward, but know that there's a lot of opportunity. Eventually, community colleges together to make something great happen in the South Valley corridor. To that end, the members of this group and the steering committee have sort of been looking at best practices elsewhere, right? We can always learn from other people that are doing great work. And they looked at a number of places, San Francisco and Twin Cities, I believe, lots of places, and settled on North Carolina and the Research Triangle. And began to make some contacts back there. I'm sure all of you are at least somewhat familiar with the Research Triangle, and that they've got the three universities, UNC, NC State, and Duke, who are doing a lot of collaboration together. And then there's this 7,000 acre physical research park that has been built over the past 50 years. But that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg, frankly. So we were beginning to make contact back there with individuals, and a little over a month ago, a contingent, this group went back to North Carolina, and we were able to visit with all 3 university presidents, leaders in the community, chambers of commerce, state commerce, my counterpart in North Carolina. So lots of very influential people and folks that have been involved, frankly, with the research park from nearly the beginning. And we were very fortunate to glean quite a bit of information, none of which is earth-shattering, right? Like, they're not doing anything so novel back there. It's really, quite remarkable that we really just need to get back to the basics. So a couple of observations that I have had and others have had following that trip that I think you might find interesting. In their minds, partnership and collaboration are it. That's the key. Every single meeting, and we, over the course of about 48 hours, had, I don't know, 15 meetings with individuals across the sort of triangle area. They all were saying nearly the identical same, like word for word, It's as if they, had a script and they were reading from it, but they weren't. They frankly have been in meetings weekly together, collaborating for decades at this point. And it is just part of their culture that they have agreed on a vision, agreed on how they're going to go about executing on that vision. They've agreed that they're all going to sit at the table every week, every single week, look each other in the eye, and not compete with each other, but collaborate with each other. And so, and frankly, that is the priority. And so if somebody misses a meeting or 2 meetings, they get a phone call from the chair. Why aren't you here? So those are it's very basic, right? That's not earth-shattering. But it's something that we've certainly lacked in the South Valley corridor. There hasn't been a point person between the multiple jurisdictions to really bring and partners together and hold folks accountable. So that is something that's very easy and tangible and not it's not a difficult thing to do. It really is just a matter of doing it. The other thing that I think you all can appreciate is that North Carolina, the state, has basically, they have said higher education is economic development. They have committed to that. And we see that through certainly funding models and that sort of thing. I don't know if they're the top, but they're certainly top 5 in funding of higher education in the state. They're also ranked number 1 in for business, coincidentally. I don't actually think those 2 things are disparate. Like, there's a reason what they're doing both things quite well. And so how we saw that sort of materialize on the ground in North Carolina was in a couple of ways. We were at NC State. They have a business incubator, something similar that many of you have probably seen before. We have them here in Oregon, certainly. We actually do quite a good job incubating business here in Oregon in conjunction with our universities. This one was quite fascinating. It entire buildings with, small spaces where somebody can just land at a desk versus, maybe a laboratory space versus a full building that a business is now occupying. They also bring in community colleges at NC State to help with licensing, and they just make sure that the ability to do business on the campus is easily done. And so resources are readily available for these businesses, and then they grow and they turn and they move on to the next thing, right? So it's not something that we aren't familiar with here in Oregon, but certainly prevalent in North Carolina. That's NC State. Duke uses downtown Durham, the city of Durham, as their incubator. So they've chosen not to invest on campus necessarily, but in downtown Durham, where there was a fair amount of space and opportunity for revitalization. And so it was really interesting for me to see, certainly, being familiar with Eugene and Corvallis, there's plenty of space. There's lots of space and opportunity for revitalization in those downtowns. We don't necessarily have a lot of usable land in Oregon. I mean, that sort of comes back to, the way we operate in our land use system here in Oregon. But we certainly do have opportunities within our existing UGBs and our built environment to better utilize space for innovation and economic development. And so it was very interesting to see that sort of take place in downtown Durham, at really with an investment from not only Duke, but private industry who are at the table. So all that to say, bottom line, I'll just say it again, what North Carolina is doing is not novel. It's very doable here in Oregon. And I think that was a great sort of opportunity for the contingent that did go back to witness this, to see that this is something that we can also do here in Oregon. It's really just a matter of having the right people and sitting at the table, leaders in the communities that can help move this initiative forward and incentivize participation, find that alignment, make the commitments, and move forward. So I'll stop. I thought I was hoping that might be of interest to you, all of you, but yeah.
Commissioner Smith.
Chair Hammond. So just the it is to harness the research capabilities of a university, spin it out into private business, and then recoup through a tax structure back to our state.
Well, I mean, economic development certainly at its core is, business development. Businesses pay taxes, both property and income taxes, and those then come back into the state so that we can certainly make good on general services that are needed.
A concern I would have would be, that our public investment then provides, enriches private citizens who then don't pay taxes back into keeping the loop.
I see. Yeah, but no, the goal is the goal is tax growth, right? Absolutely.
So that would be an important aspect to make sure that tax, that wealth is recouped by the state. We're not just
certainly
giving out,
I mean, there are, and what I would say is that in many of the economic development programs, there are return on investment provisions already. So that is something that is pretty standard.
Any other? Yes, Commissioner Fajardo.
Yeah, so that's really exciting, your update here. So as you talk about what North Carolina has stood up as far as that ecosystem of policymaking, participation from private industry, universities. So how do we get started on that? I assume that it's not something that we would have to construct from full cloth within this area, but like, where are the potential gaps where we could start to get some momentum on getting those connections and those collaborations together?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a steering committee that's really leading this effort. I get to sit in on those meetings. I'm not part of the steering committee. I'm an observer at this point. But it's really led by industry and university, the two university presidents, and then private industry members. So Jordan Pape is the chair. He's a prominent business owner down in the Eugene Springfield area. And then Carla Chambers is also on that. She's a prominent business owner, Stallbush Farms, up here in the Corvallis, Albany area. So those are the individuals that are really setting the table and moving this initiative forward. They're bringing in chambers of commerce, certainly, and then other members of the business community. I also know, just Monday night, I was at an event where this was being discussed. Community colleges are also being invited to the table moving forward. So I think the real key right now is let's get the table set with the individuals, the right individuals representing all the different views that need to be represented. And then they're going to be doing sort of this analysis, where are the gaps? And how, and is this the right vision? I mean, they really do need to settle on the vision, right? And understand exactly what everybody can agree to. As soon as that's done, then I think they can identify the gaps moving forward.
Commissioner Colbert.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for the information on your trip. North Carolina is definitely a model to emulate in terms of their career development pathline and how they really link their post-secondary education to their career development. I think Oregon has historically really struggled when it comes to developing the workforce that we need to continue providing the services that we want to our citizens. And we instead have relied heavily on importing talent from out of state. And now that we're at a point where Oregon is no longer seeing the influx of domestic or international migrants that we need in order to fulfill all of the jobs that we need to have filled, it really behooves us to address this as if it were a crisis, because it is a crisis, to develop our own youth to fill the labor shortages that are coming and in some cases are already here. So I'm really glad to see that those steps are being taken, and I really hope that we take this as seriously as it needs to be taken so that we are not confronted with a labor shortage crisis in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Being in Eugene, I see there's a massive student population there, so much talent, and what can we do to continue to keep that in not just Eugene, but in Oregon, right? I think it's really important to keep these students here.
Thank you so much. Anything else? Yes, Mr. Dunbar.
Thank you. I really appreciate the the focus on partnership. It is really so important, and I appreciate the component of workforce development. But I think the economic development is also really important, and I think we don't talk enough about the research function of our universities, and using them as leverage for new economic development focused regionally, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate your interest in.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, if you all haven't been to Night Campus, right, that is a prime example of innovation and opportunity for economic development. Onami up here at OSU is another, just a tremendous example. We do that okay here in Oregon, right? We do it okay, but we don't. The gap in sort of realizing those opportunities here in Oregon is we innovate and then they spin out and they go elsewhere, right? And that's a loss for us. It's a big loss for the state.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Continued conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I do have to leave. I apologize. I need to run to my next meeting, but thank you. And it was great to see you all in person.
We're going to move on to public testimony. We have 13 people signed up. Some are just in writing. I just want to, testimony is provided in writing is available online. So just be aware of that. But I think we have 8, 9 in person. The first person is Abby Lee. Yes. And a reminder, all of you, please, 3 minutes. Okay, I won't do anything terrible if you go beyond that, but I would encourage you, please. Okay. Go.
Brevity.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Heyman, Commissioners. It's good to be with you in person at one of our 17 community colleges. So welcome, and it's great to see you. Enrollment is up statewide. There is momentum across our state, and we are excited. Our colleges are energized. And one of the things that I wanted to report to you that we got from DCWD Director Donna Llewellyn is that FTE funding came, there were very few modifications. So I want to tell you that means that our systems are strong and they are aligned. And so I think that is good news. And then we will continue to remind you that community colleges work for Oregon. As Director Cannon said, you're hearing a lot of information about the Bachelor of Applied Science degree. As you are considering that, and there'll be lots more discussion, we really want to leave you with a yes and consideration. Yes, we need strong pathways and transfer pathways, and we value our university partners. So yes, we need to continue that. But as you see in your recent report on teacher workforce, we need another unique and innovative solution, and we think that the Bachelor of Applied Science offers that. So yes, strong pathways and another option to deal with what we see as a statewide workforce crisis. So we welcome continued conversations and we look forward to additional partnerships. We also, last October, as you know, Amy Cox presented kind of, I think, what was a stunning report, a sobering report on developmental education. We are continuing to look at co-requisite models. We appreciate Commissioner Middleton, who comes to our board meetings, and we look for more clarification and clarity on how we can continue to work on those issues. They are critical to our student success. So thank you for your input. And we also are responding to what we think is also a pretty stunning response, their request on the 5% cuts. As you know, our colleges have made a lot of cuts, and we are committed to presenting that information next week at HECC's request, but we are also including at HECC's request and the governor's request additional impacts to our colleges and the reduction of federal grants. And those are primarily focused on student success. And so we really want you to see the entire picture as we saw in the last big cuts in the 2009 era. Those impacts really affected our student completion. And so we want to see what we can preserve. But we understand these are challenging times for all of you, and we appreciate HECC's support. Finally, we're gearing up for our annual conference and want to highlight that we would welcome all of you to come, and that Helen and Dave Edwards are keynote presenters, and they're going to speak to our boards about higher education and artificial intelligence, which is a really important issue. So with that, thank you for your continued support and your partnership and your support for Oregon students. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Not everybody knows.
Thank you for the protocol. I apologize. I should know that. I am Abby Lee. I'm the executive director of the Oregon Community College Association, which is why I am so excited to have you here at one of our community colleges. Thank you, Director Cannon.
Thank you so much. Our next public testimony is Andrea Castaneda.
And for folks online, you should now all be promoted to turn on your camera and audio now.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you everyone for having me. I'm sorry I couldn't make it to Albany. My name is Andrea Castaneda. I'm the superintendent of Salem Kaiser Public Schools. And it is an odd and yet delightful feeling to be on the other side of the dais. So here I am, happy to be with you. I am coming today to share my enthusiastic support for the community college-based consortium application that you guys will be considering later. And I want to share just a little bit about why it matters so much to a place like Salem Kaiser. So our school district is the second largest in Oregon. We serve about 37,000 students, and we have about 5,800 staff. And as of today, we have 230 emergency or provisionally certified licensed educators, and we still have 75 vacancies. And we are doing everything we can to fill them. We are recruiting everywhere. And as a leader, it is hard to say that I can see the problem, which is that we have the right problem, but we are chasing the wrong solution. We are never going to recruit our way out of our vacancy issues. We need a different approach. We need a pipeline that allows us to grow our own teaching assistants and paraprofessionals into licensed educators. That's the path forward for a place like Salem Kaiser. And to understand why I feel so strongly about this, I want to tell you a little bit about our deputy superintendent, Olga Cobb. So Olga started her teaching career with us, I think it was 27 years ago, and she started as an instructional assistant. And over 3 decades, she has become, she's risen from instructional assistant to deputy, and she is for sure the most influential and trusted leader in Salem Kaiser. And I share this because I know that we have dozens of Olgas all throughout our schools. Instructional assistants who are motivated and they're gifted. They see our kids' strengths. They look like our kids. They know our children's families. And there is no belief gap for them. They know our kids can do this because they have been those children and they have those children in their lives. I would invest in Olga's so quickly if we had the pipeline to do it. And that means that we need help from creative community college and higher ed partners because we need these grow your own pipelines that are specifically designed for working adults. They can become great credentialed teachers, but they do need programs that understand their unique gifts, their experience and their strength, but also the barriers that often sit in front of working adults who are seeking the next level of credentialing. We have a few excellent programs like this with Western Oregon, and they are amongst our most important higher ed partners. And at the same time, we could fill 10 times the spaces that we currently have available if only there were more programs like this. And this is why I think community colleges are such a profound opportunity because they often have all of the assets we need. So for Chemeketa, they are well established in our community. We know that our kids and adults feel safe and welcome on campus. We already have a strong and trusting relationship with Chemeketa, and they know how to serve working adults. It would be a perfect partnership for us or others. And so I'm just coming to ask you to think boldly and act boldly on behalf of the BASE Consortium application and do it because there are thousands of paraprofessionals who can give so much more to kids. But also, I just ask you to think about the enormous good that could be done in our K-12 classrooms if instead of having vacancies, we had skilled and committed staff who started with us and progressed for their whole career towards even greater impact. I know you have a hard job to do, and I really appreciate the work that you do to oversee and manage our higher education system and help create great programs like the one that you are being presented through the BASE Consortium application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Miguel Perez?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, hey. Chair Greg Hammond, Vice Chair Emily Sibnett, Executive Director Ben Cannon, and all the members of this commission. I am here on behalf of pursuing this BASE program, the Bachelor in Applied Science for the community colleges. I am a Salem Kaiser School District employee, and I'm also a community college student. I'm adult student, community college student. And the impact that starting my education at Chemeketa has had on me, it's being outstanding. I'm a 4.0 GPA student, and I also deal with a 40-hour week type of job. I work in a middle school in the Salem Kaiser School District as a behavioral assistant, and I can tell you there is days that are rough. There is days that I come home emotionally drained, but that does not stop me to try to pursue my license as an educator. Right now, for me being in Chemeketa, it's working out perfectly well with my times and also with how affordable it is for me. Just thinking of the idea of transferring to a four-year university and having to possibly relocate or figure something out for my family to keep going in terms of paying the bills and maybe finding a graveyard job or something. It will take away that spark that I have right now to continue my education and continue thriving on my excellent academic achievement. I really know that our connections with universities is very, very important. And as Abby was mentioning, it's not about trying to get that away. It's trying to reinforce and to support the adult student that is trying to pursue license for teaching. In this case, I'm pretty sure there is plenty of us that have a 40-hour week job. And on top of that, we manage a part-time student life at a community college. So it's just a request. I know that this doesn't happen overnight, but I'm happy to give my testimony. I am very thankful for everything that you guys provided to us. I'm very thankful for these connections with the universities. And I just want to give back to my community. Every time I come back home, and, sometimes I speak with friends that are in a different work environment, and they all ask me like, hey, why do you want to come back tomorrow? Why don't you just find another line of work? And I always say the same thing. I want to be some role model that the kids will have in their lives so they can become the future of this country. Because what we really need is hope. And what we really need in these times of difficult moments that we're going as a country, it's perseverance. And I think like just having that option of giving the community colleges the opportunity to give a bachelor's degree for students, that will be a really, really good starting point. So
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
appreciate your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Miguel. Appreciate
Thank you.
that. Ryan Thompson.
Thank you for having me today. Ryan Thompson from the southern part of the state, Grants Pass, Oregon, Grants Pass School District. I'm the Human Resources Director there and have also had roles both as a high school principal and elementary principal. And so for the past 24 years in hiring, I've seen a lot of a change. It was most common in hiring teachers that they would be coming from out of the university program. They'd be 22, 24, 25 years old and eager and to get started in the industry. Right now, similar to Salem, appreciate the words from both our last two people who testified, including Superintendent Castaneda. We are hiring people that are current employees, educational assistants that are going back to school and are looking for the best pathway for them to become licensed. And right now, the best pathway for them to become licensed, unfortunately, involves out of state. And that is Western Governors University, and it is Grand Canyon University. 75% of our licensed, our employees that are working towards licensure, they're looking for the path that allows them the ability to stay employed in our school district, and one that involves they can stay home with their families and work around the schedules that are dictated by those two things. So as much as we encourage them to use our local universities, it's a 2-hour trip, 1 hour there, 1 hour back to our local, most local four-year university, Southern Oregon University. Rogue Community College is our neighbor. They're right in our community. They have campuses, multiple campuses in Southern Oregon, and it allows our people a chance to stay in their hometown, work their jobs at the elementary, middle, and high school level, and then attend classes in the evening or around their work schedule. I can tell you, our people would be so excited to have that local option where they can live and work and go to school in their own community. Our number one hiring pool right now, as I mentioned, is our support staff, our classified staff. And the more opportunities we can give them to earn a degree in the state of Oregon without those dollars leaving our state. I heard some testimony earlier about some of the economic drivers, and I would love to see our Rogue Community College be better utilized, and our people being able to spend more time with their families and be able to maintain employment by attending university right here in our own hometown. So I thank you for the opportunity to testify today and wish the committee luck in making a decision soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Rhea Newman.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. Good afternoon, Chair Hammond, Vice Chair Simmet, and the members of the commission. My name is Rayette Newman, and I serve as the Dean of the College of Education at Eastern Oregon University. Thank you for this opportunity to provide comment regarding the proposed Bachelor of Applied Science in the Education degree. I would like to share that Oregon already has a comprehensive statewide network of teacher preparation programs. Currently, across the 6 public and 8 private institutions, we offer 115 different pathway options. Within these options, there are 30 dual endorsement pathways, 23 ESOL, 11 special ed, and 5 reading, 38 multiple subject pathways, 28 single subject pathways, and 12 special education pathways. By degree level, our existing pathways include 53 undergraduate routes, either the BA, the BS, or the BEd, 23 post-bachelorette programs, and 49 MAT and graduate pathways. Our delivery models are equally varied and accessible. 35% of our Oregon teacher preparations never require a candidate to step foot on a college campus. Statewide, that includes 5 fully asynchronous online pathways, 15 fully synchronous online pathways, 20 mixed asynchronous and synchronous pathways, 49 on-campus pathways, 6 on-campus and online synchronous pathways, and 20 on-campus online synchronous pathways. Every Oregon education preparation provider has confirmed that they have capacity to take on more students. The challenge is not lack of teacher licensure capacity or pathways. It's connecting future educators to the high quality programs that already exist across the state. It's finding individuals interested in education. Despite declining enrollment trends in recent years, Oregon's education preparation programs have listened closely to our school district and community college partners and responded proactively. We've adapted our initial teacher at licensure programs to include in-demand endorsements, expanded program offerings, and revised delivery methods to meet students where they are. We've also become more creative in how we structure student teaching experiences, maintaining traditional routes while also creating options for candidates on restricted or emergency licenses, and developing pathways for those already working in schools to retain their employment while completing the student teaching requirements. Last year, Oregon's education preparation providers collaborated with our community college partners to revise the major transfer map in education. Many of our institutions have established 2+2 agreements with their community colleges to create seamless, affordable pathways for future teachers. These coordinated efforts demonstrate our shared commitment to access, efficiency, and equity across Oregon's higher education system. The infrastructure and capacity to prepare more teachers already exists. What's needed now is the coordination and continued investment in these proven partnerships. I'd like to highlight the successful partnership between Eastern Oregon University and Clackamas Community College. EOU faculty are physically present on the Clackamas Community Campus. Their offices are located there, and they teach courses face-to-face in the evenings and mentor students directly within their community. This partnership has created a sustainable, high-impact model for preparing teachers where they live and work, one that strengthens local pipelines and supports community-based education. EOU has also implemented a future educator financial incentive of $4,000 off the cost of tuition for anyone transferring in from an Oregon Community College into the initial teacher licensure programs. This is the type of collaborative, efficient solution Oregon should be investing in, one that builds on existing relationships, leverages institutional strengths, and meets the students where they are. We are actively working, oops, sorry. Would you like me to be done?
Wrap it up.
You got it. We're actively working to reestablish and expand our presence at partnering community colleges and campuses to strengthen and fast transfer pathways and increase local access to teacher preparation. However, the development of the proposed base degree has not only created uncertainty, but also slowed and in some cases disrupted these ongoing collaborative efforts. I respectfully ask the Commission to focus on and support cross-institutional partnerships like those already working successfully across the state to strengthen teacher preparation and meet workforce needs responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know. Susan Gardner.
Good afternoon, commissioners and Executive Director Hannon. Thank you for this time. My name is Susan Gardner. I'm the Dean of the College of Education at Oregon State University. And I've been really excited to hear all the testimony so far today because it highlights for me that we're continuing to do really, really great work in the state of Oregon and that our graduates are needed. And I'm very excited to tell our 500 pre-teacher educators that there is plenty of jobs out there for them. The other thing I really appreciated before the testimony period was hearing from Sarah Means from the governor's office about partnerships and collaboration being key. And I think that's really the point of my remarks here today, is that the enrollment needs that all of our higher education institutions in Oregon are salient. We are all facing not only enrollment cliffs that are coming up, as well as what we've already heard about the tightening budget conditions in the state and federally. So all of these things are understandable. But in my opinion, I don't think duplication is the answer that we're seeking to these workforce needs. We already have robustly funded community colleges and higher education institutions, but rather than deploying the resources that are already limited, let's think about how we can better collaborate and partner. And I think the other piece that is really important here is the fact that this is not merely about teaching courses. And I think an in-depth examination of the costs of putting together any of these programs, similar to the nursing program that was stood up a while ago, is that the costs go beyond the instruction of the courses. At OSU, for example, we have upwards of $1 million that go beyond instruction just to support these accredited programs. And that ranges from assessment to placement to licensure and lots of different things. So the model, the funding model is also an important piece here. So going back to that aspect of affordability is going to be vital. And also thinking about those limited resources that we have in the state, how we can better collaborate instead of compete. And I heard loud and clear from our K-12 partners in this testimony that accessibility to the different programs that exist is more important. And you heard from Dean Newman that that's something that we all pride ourselves on, whether private or public here in Oregon. And OSU heard that loud and clear, especially. We actually have just stood up, as of August, a completely online 4-year program, easily transferable from our community colleges. And much like our EOU partners, we are going to be moving toward a tuition scholarship for Oregon Community College students who want to complete their fully online degree here with us in our top award-winning and highly ranked eCampus program. So what I would ask the commissioners to think through, and I'll wrap up here, is that, how can we better coordinate rather than compete? These going beyond these expensive needs to stand up, could we think about aligning licensure needs and coordinating accreditation and sharing the resources like instructional costs? Clearly, we have a lot that is already happening in Oregon. How can we better promote what is happening to get to the students who need it? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I believe the next verbal testimony is from Ineka Brooks.
Is Mineka Brooks online?
Yeah, it's here on my screen. Trying to get off mute, looks like.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hear me
Yes.
now? Okay. I was talking and I was like, nobody's hearing me. Wonderful. Hi, my name is Menaka Brooks. So Chairman Heyman, Vice Chair Simnett, and members of the commission, for the record, my name is Menaka Brooks and I serve as Dean of the College of Education at Portland State. I came to Portland State because I believe in its power as an access institution. 55% of the students at Portland State are transfers. Within the College of Education, our elementary education and our bilingual teacher preparation program have been specifically designed to align with the major transfer map, which was just approved in 2025. Our Rise to Teach partnership with Portland Community College adds mentorship and tuition scholarship to support community college students through a bachelor's degree or a master's degree if they choose to do that. We are currently working with our community college partners to better align our special education pathways. As someone new to the Oregon context, this is the beginning of my second year here, I've been heartened by the extensive collaboration that is already in existence. Faculty within our college, like Drs. Esperanza de la Vega and Dot McLahone, have been engaged in this work for multiple years. We are not an institution that has shied away from partnering with community colleges and making curricular adjustments to better serve the needs of transfer students. However, I'm not naive. As a leader, I can recognize the motivation of this proposal may reflect that perhaps all community college partners and constituents do not feel best served by the current organization of offerings across Oregon. On the surface, this appears to be a student success-driven proposal. However, I ask everyone here to take a step back and ask, is this proposal the best next step for PK-12 students, aspiring teachers, and Oregon's post-secondary institutions? In times of financial precarity and limited resources, reimagining what could be to best serve students should be centered in collaboration and changing infrastructure so that institutions with distinct missions can best serve Oregon's student population. Rather than investing limited public resources in developing a new and parallel system, the focus should be on refining partnerships that center students and finding creative solutions to become a stronger educational community collaboratively so that we can prepare the next generation of Oregon's teachers. I know that PSU's College of Education and the other educator preparations in Oregon are ready and already engaging in the necessary work. As an academic, because I'm a nerd, I also turn to the research literature on community college baccalaureate programs. I did see a recognition of how these programs can broaden access to bachelor's degrees, which is important. However, the story is much more complex. For instance, in a recent article published in 2023, there was a recognition of the resource strain experienced by community colleges who now have to serve multiple missions. In other words, what does it literally mean to add a whole new distinct population of students and serve them in these times of financial precarity? Within these times of limited resources, I contend that it is a more responsible fiscal decision to invest in partnerships between existing institutions. Specifically, we should lead with the collaborative approach that seeks to strengthen our existing infrastructure to best serve all those who live in Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Teresa HECC.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Teresa HECC, and I'm the Dean of the College of Education at Western Oregon University. As Oregon's historic teachers college and a long-standing leader in educator preparation, Western Oregon maintains the highest standards in teacher ed and ensures broad accessibility for students across the state. I wanted to speak with you today to express our opposition to the proposals allowing community colleges to offer BAS degrees in education. This new pathway, if approved, would require substantial investment from the state. It would create duplicate programs and access to the teaching profession, and it would unnecessarily increase competition in an already stretched and stressed higher ed landscape. If Oregon needs more qualified teachers, then we should be actually working together to incentivize enrollment in the current teacher education programs in the state, where there is definite and expressed capacity, as we heard from Dean Newman, and there's also existing well-developed resources. There are numerous examples throughout the country where states have created scholarships or fellowship programs designed to lower the cost of four-year degrees in teacher education or educator preparation, and we could certainly do this in Oregon. I want to note that Western has a proven record of meeting the state and regional demand for well-prepared educators through robust and accessible pathways. Our programs are available in multiple delivery formats, including fully online and hybrid modalities, and they also are offered with flexible scheduling designed to serve both traditional and non-traditional students. We've established strong transfer pathways with community colleges statewide, and we ensure that students can move seamlessly into our programs without duplicating coursework. At the end of the day, what do I want you to know? I really would love you to know that we are here. We're willing partners. We want a conversation, and we're listening. We acknowledge that resources are scarce. We'd like you to know that we have capacity, we have structures that are built, and we also have processes in place. It is the time to think boldly and to think creatively, but we need to do this in a fiscally intentional manner. We're open to unique structures and solutions that rely on our current processes and structures. These programs are very expensive to create and to run, and we'd be duplicating structures at a cost that we may not be able to afford given our budget realities. So at the end of the day, I'd like you to know that we are here, we are listening, and we're very eager to partner in collaborative ways. And I think the question that we should move forward with is not how can we build a second kind of parallel pathway as was articulated before, but how can we collaborate and be better together as collaborators in the work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And our last testimony is Aaron Henry.
Oh, pardon me, that is a written testimony as well.
In 3 minutes.
So the remainder of the testimony from Barbie Riggs, Ed Deal, Kevin Mannix, and Aaron Henry are included in the online packet.
All of that. Okay, good. We are, we take care of the consent item.
Yeah, let's, I want to suggest, Mr. Chair, we do the consent items, which are community college program approvals. You actually will not get a legislative report from Kyle today, so we'll pick up some time there and then we can figure out your break.
Great.
Question really fast. I only see 2 written items for testimony. I don't see any testimony from.
The 2, if I understand correctly, there 2 were originally included in the packet.
Yes, several have been added just in the last day.
Got it.
And they're posted online.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you much. So we have 5 consent items. We can deal with these simply by approving the consent agenda, or if you have a question.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Devlin. We have a second. Commissioner Middleton seconds. Any conversation? All in favor? Aye, we have approved that. We try and take a break.
Yeah, take maybe a 5 to 7 minute break, maybe back at 2:40.
You can do that?
2:40.
Bathrooms are left, right,
No,
and on the left.
you don't.
We are now off mute.
Great. We have reconvened and probably I think everything we've done up to this point is certainly important, but I think the next item is really important opportunity for detailed conversation. Executive Director Ben Kennan to lead us into this.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. And this is your final item for the afternoon. We're planning to adjourn about an hour, a little less than an hour from now. So that's what we're looking at in terms of timing. I'll spend maybe the first 20 to 25 minutes or so in presentation and then dedicate the rest of it to discussion. As the docket item summary notes, this is really an invitation to the commission to reflect on its roles and responsibilities, its strategic plan that you adopted last year, in the context of the present moment that Oregon and the nation finds itself in for higher education and workforce development. And I'm not suggesting that that we should be redoing our strategic plan. I'm not suggesting that this commission needs to sort of radically alter its approach or responsibilities. But I do want to encourage the commission to reflect on where we are, where we've been, what the law says about our roles and responsibilities, what you said last year about in the strategic plan, and consider, are there areas that need to be changed or strengthened? Are there particular aspects as you look at that plan that we should be leaning particularly hard towards? And are we meeting the moment? This presentation that I'll launch here in a moment gives a fair amount of background and context on the commission. It incorporates some of the orientation materials that new commissioners have seen before, presentations we give to the legislature that introduce the HECC. So bear with that, because for some of you, particularly longtime serving commissioners, it will be quite familiar, but we have new commissioners and newer commissioners and thought that would be a useful way of introducing this conversation through a kind of grounding in the commission. So Guthrie, if you want to pull up the slide, or I can, either way. Actually, we'll see who gets there first. We didn't coordinate this.
This is the slide deck, right?
This, yeah, I'm
Okay.
gonna use the slides that are in your packet. And here we go. Thanks. I'll give you the signal. Okay, so yeah, you can go to the overview. So a little bit about who we are and have been, what we do, why we do it, and where we're going. Next slide. You know our vision statement. This was adopted by you in the strategic plan that you completed late last year. Our vision of a future where all people benefit from the economic, civic, and cultural impact of high quality post-secondary education, training, and workforce development. Next slide. Introducing the HECC, and this is a really simplistic summary. There's more detail in subsequent pages, but you are responsible as the Leadership Commission for Post-Secondary Education Training in Oregon for setting a strategic vision, administering the state higher education and workforce development budget, approximately $4.4 billion in this biennium, coordinating post-secondary degrees, programs, and academic pathways, administering state financial aid workforce and other programs, and conducting research, evaluation, and analysis. Next slide. History. Boy, we've got a few historians now here on the commission, sitting between a couple of them, and Commissioner Devlin online and others who've been engaged in this a long, long time. And this is a history in a nutshell. I'm not going to go through this slide really in any detail, but I think the trend here has been for growing levels of responsibility for this commission, certainly a growing staff and number of assignments that the legislature has handed off to us over the years. And as former Senator Dembro mentioned in his introduction, the HECC itself was the result of an effort to really consolidate higher education and workforce development responsibilities in a single agency. So you were created with an expectation that you would be looking across the landscape of community colleges, public universities, financial aid and access programs, private post-secondary education, workforce development programs, employers, and considering what the state priorities, investments, policies ought to be. Great example of that expectation of cross-sector leadership in the public testimony this afternoon, right? You have to resolve sort of this, I think, very challenging question associated with community colleges, public universities, and what's in Oregon's interest and Oregon students' interest. Next slide. This is an accomplishment slide. Sorry, the small text. I can't remember if there were a few here I wanted to emphasize in particular. This is the next two slides are a snapshot of some of the ways in which I think this commission has been quite impactful over the years. You have done everything from launch a new Oregon aid application for students who don't qualify for the FAFSA. That was in partnership with the legislature that enabled it, but we administer it to qualify many Oregon students who weren't previously eligible for now state financial aid. You have helped to drive new transfer laws that then require the commission to create more seamless transfer pathways for students. The agency has consolidated dozens of data collections to a single research and data office that's using cross-sector, college, public university, workforce employment data to provide reports that you oversee and provide to the legislature. You've implemented and overseen the creation of the Oregon Tribal Student Grant. Again, legislature authorized that, and your rules determine how that investment is made, et cetera, et cetera. So just a few, I think in order to think about potential future for this commission, reflecting on what it has done, what are significant ways that it's had impact in the past. So take a look at that. Next slide. Yeah, you can skip on to there were two of those accomplishments slide. Thought maybe I'd put it on one. This is you, the 15 volunteer members of the commission, appointed by the governor, confirmed by the Senate. Our 3 new commissioners included here, and our 5 commissioners total who represent slots assigned to university faculty, community college faculty, university undergraduate, university graduate, community college student, and then our simplified version of our HECC agency and the 8 offices that support your commission. Next slide. The next 2 slides are really about partnership and the various entities with which we work across the state. I won't belabor this because you have a pretty good idea. It also, this one reflects the fact that we're a coordinating board, not a governing board. So we don't visually, this slide shows the HECC in blue to the side, not above, because it represents the partnership relationship that we have with these systems. There is a certain amount of oversight too, so it's a little bit more complicated than that, but nevertheless, broadly, I think this should be understood as we're working alongside the 200 plus independent or separately governed both public and private entities that are described, summarized on the right-hand side. Next slide. Additional partners include state agencies. They include various advisory boards and other boards that our agency supports, including the Transfer Council, the Workforce Talent Development Board, Future Ready Oregon Industry Consortia that are on the left, state government partners, our tribal partners, and associations like the Oregon Community College Association, you heard from this morning, the Oregon Council of Presidents for the universities, and other entities that we work closely with that operate independently. Okay, turning towards a little more towards your recent work on mission and strategy. Next slide. The HECC's mission was also updated with your strategic plan, and you emphasized in thinking about what the agency does, like what, this is a very complex and decentralized system. You don't do everything. In fact, you don't do most things. tell people I'm in higher education, I say, but I don't work with students. You know, I mean, I know some students and they come to talk to the commission and we have them on boards and things, but we don't teach, right? We don't deliver education. Okay, so what do we do? Well, this is your mission attempts to express the HEC's functional responsibility for strategic coordination, for funding decisions, for outreach to Oregon students and potential learners, for service provision, and we do operate certain kinds of programs, although they're not teaching ones. There are a number of services that we do provide directly. Reporting that can help to influence public opinion, policymakers, et cetera, and leadership for systems change. Getting a little more granular, the next two slides, Guthrie, if you move ahead. So this, I'm not going to go through all the details. Our two new student commissioners got a version of this in their orientation last week. It's an updated version of a document that you all received at some point that organizes our statutory responsibilities now I think I have it in 7 categories. And they'll again be familiar, but I want to, instead of going through each of these bullets, just know it. This is exactly what the law says you are to do. They're in the document that the new commissioners receive. There are statutory citations for every single one of these bullets. And the HEC was created very purposefully by the legislature and with a very discrete set of responsibilities and with a kind of additional statute that basically says, don't do anything other except these things. So, that's been softened somewhat over the years. There have been some modifications to that, don't do anything else. But by and large, I think the spirit still remains, unless the law changes, this is your assignment, okay? So again, orientation, grounding, thinking about the future, including thinking about the extent to which any of this may need to change. This is your statutory assignment. And the first category is related to that strategic visioning, one strategic vision for Oregon higher education planning, funding, and policy. And you see here things like setting state goals, strategic plan, comprehensive budget request, advising the legislature and governor on matters of higher education policy. The second category is that big funding responsibility that is a major lever for the commission and its influence or impact on the state. And this is where these are the laws that assign to the commission responsibility for formula adoption. How much does Lynn Benton Community College get of state funding relative to Chemeketa Community College or EOU relative to Western, et cetera? That is referred to here, as is our responsibility for creating the methodologies for distributing state financial aid grants to students. The legislature adopts the budget for those programs, as it does for the community colleges, public universities, et cetera. And then you, the commission, are responsible for determining within statutory parameters how that aid is delivered to students. The third category we heard a lot about over the last hour, which is the coordinating post-secondary degrees, programs, and academic pathways, program approval. I call it public college or university cannot start a new program, a new degree program in Oregon without your approval. But this is also a really sweeping category that has grown a lot since the commission began in 2013. That includes our transfer work, common course numbering work, accelerated college credit programs and the standards you set for those, credit for prior learning efforts, encouraging competency-based education, open educational resources, and a whole host of other responsibilities and funding that have been assigned to the commission for that work. Next slide, and the final 4 of these major categories. This is a new one that I pulled out. It was kind of found, you could find these items in some of the others in the prior version of this slide. I call this regulating certain post-secondary institutions and activities. Because while you are not a governing board, you do have, the HEC has regulatory responsibility and a certain amount of oversight of both public and private higher education, particularly private non-independent higher education, where a degree granting institution that wants to get started in Oregon, even without any public dollars, has to come to our agency for approval. Some are independent, They've been exempted by the state legislature from that oversight. Willamette University, for example, those are specific, but others are not. And we oversee them, as well as private career schools that are not degree granting, but confer credentials with workforce benefits to students. This category, though, also now includes some public oversight. So your responsibility to approve a tuition increase greater than 5% if it's by a public university, or your responsibility, or the agency's responsibility to implement a process to review and appropriately act on student complaints. We have a small office that deals with that. Oversight of, I think maybe one or two of you have been involved in this, but believe it or not, once in a blue moon, if a community college wants to change its district boundaries, that comes to you. And it is wild. The law on that is just amazing. And our staff and this commission in prior years has been involved in that. So that's all in the law. Final three categories. So administering key financial aid, workforce, and other programs, as you know, and as I've mentioned, we help fund and oversee a workforce delivery system that stands sort of aside or astride public and private higher education, but it is largely a publicly federally funded system that local workforce development boards deploy federal resources, but we oversee that, and we oversee the dollars. And so we are deeply involved in administering that primarily federally funded system of local workforce boards and their partners in the community that support workforce development. We do so in collaboration with the employment department, and we work very closely and support a state workforce talent development board in thinking broadly about the state's workforce needs. We operate a youth employment program, a youth corps program, federal service programs like AmeriCorps, and then we administer financially for the state financial aid, a number of different programs, including ones I've already mentioned. Second to last category, evaluation and reporting. You commissioners know just how much data, information, reporting comes to this commission before typically going to the legislature. So that's a big category of effort. And finally, you as the commission are responsible for oversight of an executive director, me, who oversees an agency that supports all of this work. Okay, so that's who we are under today's law. Back to the strategic plan. So mission and now your functions, and then, between mid-2023 and the end of 2024, this commission engaged lots of Oregonians and a small group of commissioners, worked hard and represented back to the full commission the results of a lot of conversations that produced your current strategic plan, organized around 5 goals. Guthrie, next slide. The first of which is to relevance, involved improving the responsiveness of Oregon's education and training systems to the needs of learners, employers, and communities. Second is about alignment of that system and creating more straightforward pathways for learners. The third goal, affordability. The fourth, to ensure belonging for learners. And the fifth expresses a leadership value, particularly as it relates to economic development strategies through post-secondary education, workforce development, and research. Next slide. The next 2 slides, really, I very rarely present the agency's strategic plan without also presenting our equity stance and equity lens, because it was so clear from the commission in the adoption of the strategic plan last year, and as it has been from the outset of the commission, that our goals for Oregonians, including the metrics that we use to measure our progress, have to be understood in terms of expanding opportunity and not just conferring benefits to those who are the most privileged. So we can't be successful in the strategic plan if we're not also ensuring that these are benefits that are conferred to all. And that's reflected in the equity stance that the commission has taken and the equity lens that the commission has adopted. That's the next slide, Guthrie, and I promise I'm getting to the sort of big stuff in your portion of this conversation here in a few minutes. But the equity lens, which we'll talk to you about an update of at your next meeting, we'll sort of introduce the possibility of working with commissioners and staff to do an update of this lens, but it remains a vital tool for staff as we prepare reports and recommendations to you, and a tool for the commission to determine to make its decisions with a focus on equity and opportunity gaps, on identifying and addressing barriers for currently and historically underserved students in the service of education for all. All right, here's the sort of invitation. What does the moment require? So a few thoughts here, and this slide reflects conversations that the commission has had over the last year, including, and I'm thinking especially of the report that Chair Rowe, former Chair Rowe, Sandy Rowe, and former Vice Chair, now Chair Greg Heyman, gave at your May meeting, where they reported on their visits to our public colleges and universities, visiting the 24 around the state, meeting with faculty, students, presidents, and other administrators, and coming back with a sense of both the extraordinary potential and value of our public colleges and universities, and also a sense of the fragility that many of them are experiencing, and the need for the commission to, and the state of Oregon, to play a more sort of active role in ensuring their ongoing vitality. And so I've just pulled a few sort of thoughts from that conversation into this slide, and 4 categories. Reinvigorated state leadership and responsibility for the commission, right? A greater sense of state ownership, responsibility, and activation around the post-secondary enterprise. And I welcome your thoughts and encouragement about what forms this may take. One sort of the bullet I have here refers to the possibility of working, and I think now the likelihood that we would work with the legislature over the next year and a half to update state statutory goals for education. And I'll come back to that. I think I have a final slide on that. I presented to the legislature last week on this topic. So I'll come back and maybe say more about how I think that could help to reinvigorate state leadership as it relates to higher education. But I certainly don't mean for that project, if we undertake it, to satisfy one activity that could reflect a sort of reinvigorated state leadership and responsibility around post-secondary education. Number 2, and very much reflected in the report that Sandy and Greg gave in May, and your conversation in response to that then, the desire for the need for deeper levels of systemness. Okay, so we don't have systems in Oregon, right? We got rid of the Oregon University system. It's no longer. The community colleges operate really well together, and they have an association that you heard from this morning, and there's a lot of coordination within and amongst them, as there are amongst the universities. But we don't have systems, capital S systems. But your sense, the chair's sense, the spring, was that part of the response to the moment, a moment of financial fragility and technological change, demographic change, is that we need to deepen the systemic properties of these independent, separately governed colleges and universities through things like expanding shared administrative services and expanded partnership for the delivery of academic programs, student services, and the like. Again, not an exhaustive list, so welcome your thoughts on that. Third, accelerating the work to strengthen program relevance and flexibility. So again, we're doing this. Transfer is certainly an effort on the part of the state to create more flexible, shorter, more affordable pathways for students. Likewise, we've got work underway around short-term credentials, competency-based, and credit for prior learning. But this appeared to the commission, I think, appears to the commission as a really important area to deepen our efforts. And finally, and I don't have any bullets for this because maybe it sort of speaks for itself, but there was a discussion again in May of the potential need to sort of refine and clarify institutional missions and scope. And, you know, I haven't spent much time on the context because I think it's apparent. We've already talked about it. The context, part of the context here is the lack of sufficient public resources and potential additional budget cuts, right? And so this sense that Greg and Sandy came back from that set of visits with the commission has talked about as a coordinating commission for the potential need to provide greater clarity, better, more refinement of institutional mission and scope, or perhaps some institutional missions and scopes. Two more slides. The next is really a process one, and I know this will feel a little bit like jumping around, but because you're going to talk here in a moment about what do we do about any of this? Are there items to add? How does the commission leverage its role? I want to put this in the context of a timeline. This slide, and the details are primarily for staff. You don't have, we use this internally. This is really to show the timeline of our efforts as a commission and agency to support the policy making and budget development of the 2027 legislature. So much of what you will do as a commission over the next year is prepare a budget recommendation and prepare policy recommendations for consideration by the 2027 legislature. And believe it or not, that work of thinking about budget and policy, legislative budget and policy, begins now within the agency and sort of starts coming to you fairly soon, because our first, our submissions occur next summer. So I think the point of this slide is sort of, now is a good time. If there are things that you think we ought to be asking the legislature to do or do differently, now is a really good time to be having that conversation. It becomes a lot harder to incorporate that into our recommendations next summer, right? Because that's the point where we're actually finalizing our budget requests and finalizing our legislative concepts. Okay, I mentioned this, the final slide is it's a bit of an add-on. I did a presentation last week to the House Education Committee on the possibility of updating the state's educational attainment goals. 40-40-20 that was adopted in 2011. We worked with the legislature and established a corresponding adult education goal in 2018, I think. And you know, my claim is that it may be time to revisit these. And the 40-40-20 goal, if when you read the law, it's for the high school class of 2025 and beyond. So it was expresses the proportion who we intend to have a post-secondary credential or complete high school or its equivalent in 2025 and beyond. Well, here we are, 2025. And so there's a whole presentation rationale, but I think even before talking about the process, I put this in this context in under the heading of reinvigorated state leadership and responsibility. A goal is just a piece of paper, right? I don't want to suggest that setting or resetting an education goal is going to radically improve higher education. In fact, setting a goal will do nothing on its own. But I do think that a process, this interim, meaning the remainder of 2025 and 2026, of working with a subset of legislators, this commission, our workforce board, or representatives of this commission, our workforce board, to reconsider through statute what our purposes and goals are for higher education. That could be a way of recommitting other state leaders and this commission, re-engaging other state leaders with a sense of responsibility and priority around higher education and workforce development. And that goal, a new goal could be 41, 35, 20. Could be new numbers, right? Or it could look differently. It could say, yes, degree and credential, post-secondary degrees and credentials, but with a greater emphasis on good jobs, right? And they'd be measured in connection with good jobs, or with social and economic mobility, or with meeting community needs, or with employer satisfaction. And there are other metrics that we could use. But again, like in the sense for me at this moment, more important than what that new goal became or goals became would be this a public process, both public and a public meeting process, and then work between public meetings to just think deeply about the state's goals for responsibilities for and expectations for education, particularly higher education. And if that were to take place, this process that's on the slide were to take place, it would result in a bill that the legislature would consider in 2027. And we might see then a conversation in the legislature about its intent with respect to education and higher education. Again, not to satisfy the need for greater kind of reinvigorated state leadership and responsibility, but it is one potential strategy. So that's where I hoped we would begin the commission's conversation, reflecting on this and
Great. Thank you so much, Ben. I want to offer a couple of comments to let you know how I'm wired. I become motivated not by pep talks, but more by having a sober understanding of our circumstances. So that's the way I work. I'm so excited about what I think is possible, but I want to say something else. And it came out of Sarah's certain conversation about education, economic development, and sort of this collaborative thing. I mean, the words for today are collaboration, cooperation. What I'd like to add to that is, if anybody thinks that's easy, okay, it isn't. If it were easy, we would be in a radically different place than we are now. Collaborate, and I don't know if you know who he is, John Trevania provided a interview that's been covered in most of the newspapers in the state, where he lists 5 things that I think are impediments to us doing the exact thing that we're talking about. And at one level, it's sort of like we're not really wired for collaboration in this thing. And I think I think if you worked on a transfer council, if you've worked on how to find a state to develop an economic plan, I mean, and all I'm going to say is I think we should accept that reality, and I think that should motivate us to work in new ways. It's like, Ben, your first goal is we need a reinvigorated leadership, and that reinvigorated leadership for me comes from a recognition that it's going to be damn hard, and it's one of our values that we didn't talk about in our strategic plan is just because it's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. I think I don't want to back away from the fact that this is hard. This is the time. I think about a conversation about education programs, and it all sounds like we're ready to do it, but we haven't done it. And I think that's where we as a commission have to think about, how do we move ourselves beyond all of the impediments to progress, all the impediments to collaboration. Commissioner Dembro, you and I worked for years in how to get education and corrections to work together. Yeah, it's not easy, but it has to happen. And that's why I think what we're going to be talking about now, and I hope that we focus our work on, and I think Ben has provided a really well-developed sort of framework for that work. But I think we're going to have to, sort of dig in. And that's why, one of the things that, with past Chair Rowe and myself, we came away from that. We have positive institutions, energy, capacity, creativity, all out there, but we don't know how to bring it together. And that's where that, I don't know who invented the word systemness, but we need to develop a sense of systemness, where our collaborative work doesn't come down to every institution deciding how they whether or not, what's how it benefits me personally, but looking more collaboratively about how does it benefit us as a state? What's the return on real economic development and the role of education in that work? And you brought up that, Commissioner Smith, that's, yeah. So that's why I think this matters. Don't have any illusions that it will be easy, but I think it's worth doing. And that's a conversation I hope we have. Cooker?
Yes, I had a couple of things to add to that. I am really thankful for all of this revisiting of our process, what we've done so far, what we're going to be doing in the next biennium, and where we should be placing funding. I think Sarah from the governor's office said it best when she said investing in higher education is making workforce investments, right? And so going into the next biennium in terms of our LCs and our policies that we are looking to put forward, I would really love to see what we can really focus on in terms of workforce development and explicit forms of workforce development in collaboration with our higher education institutions. We are currently going through workforce crises in so many different fields in Oregon, to the point where we're even seeing a labor shortage in the timber industry, which is tremendously ironic considering the state of the timber industry in the state in the last 30 or 40 years. We're seeing labor shortage in behavioral health, in nursing, in education, as we've been seeing through a lot of these public comments. And I think that we need to get really creative about solving these issues through our own workforce development and post-secondary education pathways, because if we do not, the immigration to our state has tremendously slowed down since the boom years of the 2000s and the 2010s. And so this crisis will only become worse if we do not take fairly substantial action around this. I would really love to see concrete programs that connect employers to post-secondary education institutions and talk about loan forgiveness for a period. If the person continues to work in state for a period of 5 or 10 years, I think that would be an economic impact that would offset the cost of their tuition or fees, and really get creative about the actual cost of higher education in the state and the unseen non-sticker costs that we often see attached to the higher education, including housing and books that are often entirely too difficult to find, especially in these college towns that have overly high costs of housing. So I'm really glad to see that we are doing this work now and continuing this work into the future. And I think that we really need to get creative in ensuring that we can really train our next generation of leaders in Oregon in a way that is equitable and more than anything else, accessible, so that they can actually get the education they need. And I also want to close with one small question, which is, when was the last time that a community college district's borders were amended in the state?
It wasn't that long.
No, it wasn't.
Really?
Yeah, we made a little alteration, I think, down on the south coast.
Yeah.
Kyle Thomas, I don't know, he'll follow up with me. We'll get you these. We went down there and held hearings and.
I'm gonna forget.
Oh, and then Klamath and Central.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and I do want to close with one last thing that I had mentioned to you before, Chair Hammond and Director Cannon, which is also the public defender shortage that we are currently facing in the state, and its heavily geographical concentration around specific nodes in the state that we are currently seeing. A lot of our labor shortages that we are seeing in Oregon are concentrated heavily in specific geographical regions. And I think that by connecting post-secondary education institutions to employers in those regions and figuring out how we can invest in those pathways and in those connections, we can really work towards solving some of these labor shortages that we're seeing that are tremendously affecting the future of the state.
It's supposed to be a conversation.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Devlin.
I don't want to sound like same record playing over and over again, the same words. But one of our objectives, but part of the strategic plan, is to maintain affordable access. And maintaining affordable access affects actually many of the other objectives. I don't think in any of this discussion in developing, a new sense of leadership around higher education, we should avoid the discussion of what the actual cost will be of doing some of these things people want to do. I mean, this last budget cycle, we agreed to go along, the commission did, with the governor's request, approving a budget that actually many of us knew wouldn't meet the current service level for either the public universities or for community colleges. On the public university side, which is a lot more clear, to use a factor of 14% for state employee cost increases and 6.8 for universities is just has no basis in reality. And then again, to perhaps even more egregious, is to say that we have reduced what we believe the current service level is to this point. Now the state has only got responsibility for 25% of that, and the rest will be passed on to the universities, which i.e. means passed on tuition and fees for students. We know those students are already facing probable, depending upon, we have such an arrangement now with tuition that it's hard to make generalizations, but overall, many of the institutions will be seeking right at the point where if they went any higher, they'd have to get approval from us to go any higher. I just don't think we can deny in all of this avoiding any discussion of actual costs. I know the current sort of talking points sort of talk about difficult budget times, but I think it's important to recognize why we are in difficult budget times. First one is there's been a slight downturn in the economy. Second is the federal government has done something that's going to reduce Oregon's general fund revenue significantly. And they have cut support for a number of programs, particularly in human services and healthcare, that are going to present challenges that are beyond our ability to meet. The level of reductions in federal support in healthcare literally means the state has to there's no way to make up that level of funding. And third, the reason is over probably the last 6 to 8 years, the state has, and the legislature has overpromised and overcommitted resources that were not realistically available and would not allow the state to meet all of its budget needs in the foreseeable future. Without that kind of discussion, I think we can discuss all the great things we're going to do, but we need to actually discuss what the cost is and how we're going to maintain affordable access, both in terms of greater support for institutions and in terms of financial aid. Because I think we are losing on the affordable side, regardless of what sort of mechanisms we use to try to make it look better. To think that in a couple of years, the U of O's cost of attendance for a freshman will be over $40,000. Many of our other institutions are in the mid-30s now, so it may be 4 years before they're over 40,000. We're pricing a lot of students and a lot of families out of higher education. And I'm not talking just about the people that are the most in need. We're pricing out a lot of Oregon families, even a lot of Oregon families with not a great deal of income, but with 2 workers in the household. And I think we have to be realistic with that and realistic with our conversations with the legislature and with the governor. There is no free lunch.
Thank you, Commissioner Devlin.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, Chair Hammond. Following on that, and I don't know, looking at some of the other states' models where students of that state are able to go on to higher education and not have as much burden as they do in Oregon. And I don't what we have looked at into that, and whether it is that the higher education is funded better in those states, or a combination too of how the funding goes out to their university system, and just exploring that, because I agree that all of our goals, a lot of it comes down to that too.
Commissioner Simpson.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who's spoken so far. We're bringing up a lot of, I think, really important issues. I just wanted to reiterate what Chair Heyman said in calling out attention to the difficulty in actually collaborating piece, but I do so in saying that I think that that is the absolute right thing that we need to do. Collaboration and coordination doesn't mean continuing to add things to the existing system. It means taking a look, a really hard and sometimes difficult look at the system that we have, and having some discussions and looking to see where we can increase coordination in programs, increase the agility of our institutions to adapt to changing budgets, changing and also changing conditions in education. I just cannot, as a current educator, I cannot tell you how much the technology changes in the past year alone have affected my experience in the classroom, students' experience in the classroom, and how students are thinking about their prospects after higher education. I think, I mean, I'm not saying that generative AI is like the most important issue, but I do think that right now we have the exigence and the need to really have some of these hard discussions, because there's just been so much disruption to the system, and technology, who knows where the technology is going to lead us. So, in the other thing that I want to just make sure is said aloud, that in all of this, we know we can't do everything, but I do hope that we can continue to value what the liberal arts teach our students in post-secondary education in all, and no matter where that is happening. I think the ability to have interactive, process-oriented deliberation across difference, to be cooperative, and to come to hard discussions with a sense of uncertainty is absolutely vital for us to continue to have a democracy, and to and I think that those kinds of skills are things that we can build into our systems, not just for young people, but for returning adults too, is to support that. So I have liberal arts civic engagement.
Thank you.
But
Commissioner Fajardo.
Yeah, I just wanted to call attention to the linkage between the statements from Commissioners Kocher and Devlin respectively, talking about workforce development and economic development, and then affordable access. Because the linkage between those two is really this, is higher education worth? And that kind of societal discussion that's happening right now, this is kind of, I think, part of the moment. And I think we need to recognize that there is kind of a system here. We talk about systemness, but those linkages between, how do we link to economic success? How do we link to learner outcomes, learner investment? Because it's all part of this kind of the same problem, right? I think we have to address it. It's challenging because it's not strictly limited to the education system. It's highly networked through, throughout the state. We have to be informed by what's happening with other states as well. So it's a tough problem, but there is a linkage there between all of these.
Commissioner Middleton.
Thank you. I appreciate everything that's been said as well, and I appreciate the possibility that we would take a look at that goal of the 40-40-20, and instead of changing it to 41-39, whatever, changing it to just a different number, that we're looking at where we're at And I appreciate Chair Heyman, your words also about, look, let's look where we are. Let's be in reality. Look at where we're at and what can we do to change those, to create more opportunities to meet those goals. I also had, because it's mentioned in this, I would like more information on the Community College Support Fund and the growth cap within that formula. I hear from colleagues that administrators are canceling classes due to the growth cap, and I don't have an answer to why that would be so, but I'm hearing that from more than one college in the state. And so I'd like more information about how that works, be able to speak with my colleagues about that. And then I look forward to this work. Thank you.
Right. I have one more comment. Thank you, Chair Heyman. Just to build on what Commissioner Fajardo and Devlin said, and then also Commissioner Middleton. When we're looking at this 40-40-20 goal, we are coming very close to the 20, and we're coming close to one of the 40s, but there's one of the 40s that is not being, we are not close to arriving at, and we have not been close to arriving at. The growth rate is not there, and that is for the associate degrees and the various other technical or professional certifications. And I think that relates back to what Commissioner Devlin said about, and Commissioner Fajardo said about, what is the cost of this actually worth it for when you look at students. And I think that the students have pretty concretely been saying, as it stands right now, the cost of getting these degrees and certifications is not worth it because of the opportunity cost and because of the rising cost of education. We've been seeing that as enrollment at many community colleges around the state has either been stagnant or falling. So I would really love to see more information on what we can do to connect folks to those programs, but also figure out how we can reduce the impact of those programs on students, both financially as well as in terms of like time, in terms of the feasibility of actually attending those programs, because there's clearly a disconnect between the other two areas in 40-40-20 and this one. And we can't just get to that goal by amending the numbers. We are very clearly seeing that even though we are seeing tremendous workforce shortages around the state in a diversity of different areas, that we are seeing students collectively around the state decide this is like getting this associate degree, getting these certifications is not worth it. And so it behooves us to ask why. The other thing that I wanted to ask is similar to Commissioner Middleton, I had another request to see if we could look at other states that have student loan forgiveness programs in exchange for years of service in specific communities or in specific fields. What programs exist in other states similar to that, and what the associated cost would be in terms of the upfront investment versus the total economic development that would be gained from those programs.
Mr. Dembro.
Boy, where to start? This is, first of all, let me just say, I really appreciate this framing here at my very first meeting. And it is really important that we see some things. And boy, so I will say just, Commissioner Kocher, to your last point, many states do have loan forgiveness programs, but they're limited, I would say. And I think Ben can talk more about that. We have some ourselves for rural healthcare practitioners or something, but they're limited. They are expensive, but they're very, very important. I really agree with that. But that leads me, coming off of your first comment, I think we too often don't talk about the challenges faced by people in graduate school, actually, or those who are seeking professional certifications, beyond the bachelor's. We know we have a behavioral health shortage. We know we have an educator shortage. at the moment, part of, I think, SR1 is it creates some limitations on loans for graduate students. What is that going to mean for us? I think it is important that we focus on initial access, but I think graduate is just as important, really. And, I would say we also need to be thinking more about the challenges of getting people who already have some education, or maybe they haven't, they've gone directly into the workforce, or they have tried higher ed and it didn't work. But how can we remove the barriers to get them back into the workforce? I think there's often too much emphasis on those initial, the young people coming up, very important part of this. But I think we also have to be thinking about those returning students, and especially for institutions who are depending just on young people coming out of high school. With the demographic shifts, they're going to have to downsize dramatically. But if they do that, there's a whole population that we need to be getting back into school. We don't want that to be jeopardized. I think, with respect to the partnerships and cooperative kinds of activities, I just want to echo what the chair said. First of all, it's very difficult. One of the reasons that the HECC was created was because it coincided with the universities wanting to go their own ways with their own boards. And it was important, to many of us to hold this together and to have the kind of discussion that we're having today. And I want to say that I also really appreciate the timing of this discussion around the bachelors for education, the applied bachelors, because you probably know that a couple of years ago the legislature allowed for, permitted an applied baccalaureate in nursing. And my own preference at the time was, and continues to be, I wish that recommendation had come from the HECC, as opposed to it being a legislative / political kind of discussion. So I really value that we're going to have that discussion, which really cuts to the core of the work that we're doing here. And I think that, and I'll say one other thing about collaboration. A couple of years ago, we passed legislation dealing with university boards. And one of the things that we included there was, we called on the HECC to convene regular meetings of commissioners and board members, and ideally, both university board members and community college board members. And if we are going to move forward with the kind of broad discussion around the future of higher education in the state, which I fully support, I think it's a great framing then. I think having a convening of all the board members with the HECC members to have this kind of discussion from a perspective of what is needed for the state, not just for the individual institution. There, to a certain extent, it is the job of an institutional board member to be focused on the needs of their institution. We did in this legislation suggest that they had a broader responsibility to the state as a whole. And how can we make that work? I think is really going to be, I think I'll say that was the original vision of this body. And I really hope that this body can, take on this challenge.
Yes, Commissioner Middleton.
Thank you, Chair Hayman. I have another question, might be a little bit in the weeds, but there, we got a notice about a grant from the US Department of Labor for apprenticeships, about $5.8 million. And I got some students talking to me and asking if that could be used for student teaching, as student teaching being an apprenticeship, especially with teachers being in shortage. Because those of you that don't know, students going for that bachelor's degree in education to student teaching, they pay to basically do an apprenticeship, pay tuition. So
Yeah, just really briefly on that, the state has recently approved through the Bureau of Labor and Industries a teacher's apprenticeship program, registered apprenticeship. So whereas we typically think of registered apprenticeship in the connection with the construction trades, the building trades, it's grown over the years, and now teaching is one of the various professions for which you can enroll in a state. It's unlike most apprenticeship programs. This is actually organized through the state Teacher Standards and Practices Commission. So I don't know how the federal grant, we'll have to look into that because we've been involved in that Department of Labor grant, how that relates directly. But it is one of the priority areas for the US Department of Labor for us in that grant application and for BOLI. So another good area for us to follow.
We're only 15 minutes behind schedule, but I think this is an important conversation, so I want to make sure we don't cut it off because it'll be hard to pick it up. So if there's any other comment that needs to be made or added, no. Well, then I think I'll add just one. That is, you are invited to dinner at my place. You should have the address. I want to tell you, and I do have biases, but that isn't here. If you use Google to get there, you will get there just fine. If you use Apple's navigational system, you may get to the wrong spot. Okay.
Oh, no.
Absolutely true. And if you show up early, they'll be just fine. You know, you gave us great reason to clean the house. And I really, you know, so much of this work is going to depend on us understanding and valuing each other. And that's, so while it doesn't feel like work, that's really what we're working on tonight. Okay. And it'll be fun. Yes.
Sorry, thank you. I just wanted to know a little, and I know you showed a roadmap of this process, but in terms of tomorrow, will we be revisiting this topic?
Not directly. So
because some of these things need to percolate, and
Yeah.
Bill really brought up the things I was.
Yeah.
I don't want to just sit around saying, yeah, what they said, but.
Yeah. So just a couple of things on that. Number one, commissioners should always feel free to send me, and you're welcome to copy the chair on this as well, any thoughts, ideas, reflections you have. Likewise, feel free to give me a call at any point. The way this will help begin to show up, other than any subsequent sort of conversations we schedule, is in the implementation of our strategic plan. So I use this conversation to help inform where our resourcing decisions internally around various projects that have been proposed by our staff to implement your strategic plan. And so you'll see, you know, that'll be reflected in reporting that I do to the commission on our implementation work and in the development of our budget and legislative concepts for 2027. So those are a couple of areas where, you know, this kind of conversation starts to inform work we do at the agency to bring to you as commissioners in the service of your leadership role. I think there's probably a lot of other things too, but those are a couple of next steps that are on my mind.
Is this a topic that can be revisited as a group this evening? Okay.
No, not this evening.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Because
So revisited as, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and I think it's actually important to put on the public record now. So the commission will adjourn here momentarily for a tour, and as Greg noted, for a social dinner. Under Oregon public meeting law, we will not conduct or deliberate on business at our non-public events. You know, Oregon public meeting law does permit two commissioners, or a small number of commissioners, a non-quorum number of commissioners, to have a conversation about higher education workforce issues. I want to discourage that from taking place in a setting where we are all together, because Oregon public meeting law and the way the courts have interpreted it also suggests that if two commissioners are talking here and then one of them talks to two commissioners here about the same thing, and then two commissioners over here, even though that wasn't in one space, that actually sort of was a public meeting, or should have been a public meeting. So with that is a way of saying, avoid it outside of the context of this, or a completely separate, like go off and meet with another commissioner, have coffee, great, talk all you want about it, but not at dinner tonight.
Thank you for that clarification. We can still get to know each other.
Yeah.
Falls, right?
What?
Those falls.
Yeah.
Trust falls.
No, we're not doing that. We have bad memories.
And just to note, we're not adjourning, we're recessing to reconvene
right.
tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to do that.
You can still like.
We are recessed until tomorrow morning. Okay? Thank you, all of you.
So we're meeting
Okay.
possibly, if you want, for a tour.
Yeah, so are you touring with us?
Okay, I can get you there.
You're gonna get